Haumatakiapi, Nape Chuzapi, Chante, Washte. It's good to be here in Dakota Makoche, sharing this space and this park with our relatives in struggle, our Anishinaabe relatives, our Indigenous relatives, our non-Indigenous relatives, our Black brothers and sisters who have been since the beginning of colonization at our side. And we have to recognize that Black Lives Matter, the Black struggle, is not separate from our struggle. It's the same one. And Leonard Peltier is one of many Leonard Peltiers specific to this area. When I first moved here last November, I was shocked and appalled that there was a concentration camp still standing. The fort is still standing. I have relatives who are Hunkpati, who are from Crow Creek, who are here, who were exiled from these homelands. Their ancestors were hanged for the same thing, the same so-called crime that Leonard Peltier was imprisoned for being a patriot, for defending his homelands, for loving his people, for protecting the water. This city was founded on creating Leonard Peltiers. Today, Minnesota puts as many Native children within the state foster care system as the time that there was off-reservation boarding schools. Last year, when Deb Haaland, who by the way supports the clemency campaign for Leonard Peltier, when Secretary Deb Haaland of the Interior announced the findings of the genocide that was committed to Indian children, American Indian children, Native Hawaiian children, Puerto Rican children, they recognized that Leonard Peltier himself was a survivor of that same boarding school system. So before he even entered prison, he was already in prison. And it speaks to the grotesque nature of this system. The day of the shootout, June 26, 1975, the FBI, which was based here in Minneapolis, whose regional area commander was based here in Minneapolis, they had created a narrative that some super soldier killed 2 of their FBI agents. What they leave out about that day is that those 2 FBI agents who showed up at the Jumping Bull property, 2 elderly Oglala Lakota people, who all they wanted was protection and relief from the violence that happened because of the FBI and the Goon Squad on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. They called it a compound. They said they had bunkers. They said they had semi-automatic and fully automatic assault rifles. But they don't tell you that the vast majority of people at that compound, at that shootout that day, were under the age of 18. And they killed a young man named Joe Stuntz because he was defending 2 elders, 2 Oglala elders. So when we hear the FBI marching on Washington, D.C. during Clinton's administration because they lost 2 of their own, ask them, what about Joe Stuntz? What about the dozens of Lakota people who died during the Reign of Terror that many of those former Goon Squad members admitted that they had a part in killing? All those children. We went there. I went with my relatives here from the AIM Grand Governing Council and some of my relatives from the Peltier Defense Committee to Oglala. And I think we forget. We think of Wounded Knee occupation. We think of Oglala 1975. We know these events. But I was sitting there talking to one of my brothers, Jimbo Jones, and he said, you know, the international Indigenous movement began here in this little humble hamlet. It was here in Calico that the traditional Lakota people got together and said, enough. And it wasn't the men, it was the women, the grandmothers who stepped forward, who said, we don't want any more of our Takojas killed. So they called AIM to come in and defend our people, to stand for our people, because they had a voice. And the reason why Leonard Peltier sits in prison today is because we won. We won that history. We got recognition at the United Nations. We took it to the FBI. We took it to the United States government. We got our treaty rights recognized. Everyone talks about sovereignty today. I work for an American Indian Studies program because Leonard Peltier sits in prison today. And because people like Joe Stuntz laid their lives down for us to stand here, to speak our language, to sing our songs, to wear our hair long. And my Dekshi, I'm trying to use the proper dialect here. I'm Lakota, but my Dekshi, Frank was talking about Leonard Peltier being charged with the crime of aiding and abetting a murder. If we think about the failure of the judicial system to not only find justice for Native people, but to improperly and fail to convict this man today, every sitting president that had the power to grant clemency, every single elected official for the last 46 years who had the power to say enough, is participating in a death sentence of one of our elders and is therefore aiding and abetting a murder. Even the man who put him in prison, James Reynolds, wrote 2 letters to 2 sitting presidents, Barack Obama and President Biden, saying that the man I put in prison shouldn't be there. The very prosecutor who put him in there said, we were racist. We fabricated evidence. This probably wouldn't happen today in a fair judicial system. So why is he there? Because we won. And that's the spirit they want to kill. They don't want your children to be proud. They don't want our families to be together. They want you to sit in prison just like Leonard Peltier. These feet right here are touching the grass because Leonard Peltier's feet can't touch the grass. Imagine not being able to feel the cold grass on your feet for 46 years, what that does to a person. We're all sitting in there with our elder, Leonard. He's been in prison longer than I've been alive. And I appreciate our sister, Kathy Peltier, talking about that and sharing that story because I was there in 2016 when Leonard Peltier's son, Waha, died. And you know what? Everyone in Obama's administration slammed that door because everyone was afraid of the big orange trash panda. They were afraid of big old Trump. Nobody wanted to take a stand. And so everyone closed that door when we were there in 2016. I literally just got back from Standing Rock, getting shot with whatever, pepper spray, tear gas. Obama did a Netflix documentary saying that he was moved by the civil rights movement and the dogs attacking the civil rights organizers and the water cannons. And I had to sit and wonder, I was like, President Obama, were you not moved by the very children who sat on your lap, whose parents were getting pepper sprayed and had dogs sicked on them during your administration? But it speaks to the depravity of this system, that even watching us suffer doesn't move them to conscience, doesn't move them to humanity. If you're begging somebody for your humanity, you've already lost it. But what the American Indian movement taught us, what the Red Power movement taught us and continues to teach us, what walkers like Rachel and the AIM Grand Governing Council teach us, is that they can't kill that spirit. They're walking for, 10 weeks? 15? I Sundance for 4 days, and I have a hard time keeping in prayer. They're going to be in prayer for 15 weeks. And what makes that hard is that, like our brother said earlier, they're walking, not just to the belly of the beast. That belly of the beast begins once they leave this city. Once they walk into Indiana, Ohio, these hotbeds of white supremacy. I can't imagine keeping myself in prayer and being nonviolent while also sacrificing my own body and strength. Think about that. Every morning you wake up and you drink a cold glass of water, remember that they're out there sweating, suffering, probably getting yelled at by some white supremacists. I hope not. But this is a strong prayer, and they're going to be in prayer all the way when they get to Washington, D.C. So we all owe it to them to stand with them. Because like Rachel said, she wasn't even born when Leonard Peltier was in prison. I wasn't even born when Leonard Peltier was in prison. But I want to see our elder Peltier with us next year, February 29th, 2023, the 50th anniversary of Wounded Knee, as a free man with his family. And I know I've been talking a lot, but out west, you give Lakotas microphones and they won't shut the hell up. So, but I just want to say one thing, that everyone who's been working on this campaign, the family, Kathy, Rachel Thunder, Lisa, Frank, AIM Grand Governing Council, Carol Goki, there's a new generation out there, and we haven't forgot our elder, and I haven't seen it reach this high point before. Even the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, who's the ultimate decider, who decides whether this clemency campaign goes to, or this clemency application goes to President Biden's desk, he admitted that he actually knows about Leonard Peltier's clemency campaign, but he hasn't seen the application yet, for reasons we don't really know. But he will hear us in DC on November 13th. So thank you. Talk yet.